Well, in 1992 there was a complete fair response. There were cartoons about native title claimants taking over people's backyards and so forth, and that was actually reflected in the mining industry and indeed all industries. What is going to be the effect of this? Over time, there has been a shift to a more cooperative, a more understanding approach. Cooperative in the sense of a lot of companies use this as part of the social licence to operate through Indigenous contracting, through heritage, and generally. So it's now regarded more as an opportunity than a threat. It's kind of interesting. Well, there are different answers for each of those sectors. For the fishing industry, there's actually been a really iterative process whereby the local Indigenous people have pushed back on non-local Indigenous people using the exemption under Section 6 of the Fish Resources Management Act that allows Indigenous people to fish in accordance with normal customs. You have local people saying, you're not local, you've got a bag limit or go away. With pastoral leases, I mean, there's still an issue about whether or not it's sensible to burn country. There is some pastoralists who really adopt the Indigenous methods of land management, but the most notable cooperative element that I've seen is with the rise of farm stays. There's also been, at least in some areas, a complementary rise of Indigenous tourism, so heritage tourism, which no pastoralist who is not Indigenous is allowed to have a licence to do. So that's an economic benefit that pastoralists can get from cooperation with Indigenous people, to have two different complementary tourism activities at the same time. And mining, and some smaller miners won't regard this as an advantage, but there is much closer identity of who the stakeholders are for Indigenous heritage. So at least you don't have to sort of have a stab in the dark as to who the right people are to do an Indigenous survey. You at least have a point of contact with the registered or even unregistered native title claimants who are asserting their entitlement over country. From an Indigenous relations perspective, absolutely, and this comes from more than one case. If we start with Ward, the first land claim in Western Australia, the excitement on the first day of the hearing from the Indigenous people was nothing to do with the fact that there was a land claim on. It was all about the fact that a federal court judge had come to Kununurra to listen to them. That it was, and they didn't care who all these lawyers were, and they were just loving answering questions, even the stupid ones I was asking about. Do you see this pink bit on the map, which transpires you don't know how to read maps? But that's, you know, a whole learning experience for everyone. In another case, the Wandjina case, there was an old man who's now passed away, so I can't refer to his name, but old Mr. Gunak had a cleft palate, so he was incredibly difficult to hear, and his counsel said, well, thank you, we're now going to get Louis to say what you said to the judge so he can hear better. And this man had an old big walking stick, and he just went bang on the ground and said, no, if you can't hear me, you listen harder. And again, it was all about, this is my story and I want it heard. And I think that's the recollection that I have most vividly out of a number of claims, that the people really wanted to be heard, were heard, and that in itself was a new experience, and also the listening from the judges, the white folk, probably the other side of that particular coin.